All right, my friends, we are back. My guest today is one of my best friends who relocated to Nashville, Tennessee a few years back. He practically stumbled into a full-time gig on Broadway, cutting his teeth with legendary country music veterans. We discuss transitioning from punk rock power chords to finding a love for melody and country music and charting the dangerous waters of home studio gear and recording. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Jake Loban.
I'm losing my mind, can't believe it's true. I'm losing my mind, 'cause I'm losing you.
All right.
Are we doing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're rolling.
Cool, man.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited. I want this to be your longest podcast yet.
Yeah? Dang. You're going to have to give Ashley a run for her money.
How long was hers?
Dude, I think we pushed like 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the first one.
Yeah.
And, well, it probably doesn't like help that her and I can just rap out for hours anyway about nothing. So it was one of those where it just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And the next thing I was like, it's been 2 hours, 45 minutes. And everyone's like, dude, is every podcast going to be this fucking long? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, but then you can go back and listen, pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really sit and listen to a podcast all the way through first go.
No.
I'll listen to, 10 minutes when I'm driving to work, then another 10 minutes when I'm driving home.
Yeah.
Then I'm like washing dishes
So
and I'll listen to it's
always
always
takes you like a month to go through
Pretty
one of my
much.
podcasts, huh? He's like, I'm still on podcast number one.
I have catching up to do.
Yeah,
I really do.
that's funny. I do a lot of driving, and so for me, it's just always also like a lot of work that I do. I'm doing stuff where I'm just working on something on my own, and
Yeah.
so I just like to have it on in the background.
Yeah,
and just kind of
absolutely.
listening. You're just basically just honing in on someone else's conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I lived out here, I drove a ton too, and I loved it because I would listen to so much music. And what I would do is I'd listen to an album and then a podcast, and then an album
Yeah.
and then a podcast, and just
Yeah.
go back and forth. So then there's like music, conversation, so you don't talk to yourself too much in the car.
Yeah.
But now I don't drive. And living in Nashville, I don't drive nearly as much.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
rarely.
your house is, I mean, it's like what, 10-minute drive.
Yeah, it's 6 miles
Yeah.
from downtown, so it's really close.
Yeah.
Which is great because then it's 6 miles away from a lake too. So it's the best of both worlds. It's awesome.
Feel like that's a consensus in Nashville is it's always like 10 minutes from something.
Yeah.
It's like everything's
Yeah.
10 minutes away.
And even I remember when I first moved there and I'd tell people in Nashville, they'd say, "Oh, what part of town are you in?" And I would say, "I'm in Donaldson." And they're like, "That's so far." And I'm like, it never takes more than 15 minutes. And they're like, "Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's far." We're out here. I mean, everything takes 30 minutes to get to pretty much.
Yeah.
So
No matter how close or far it is.
yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
anywho,
Yeah.
I'm excited to be in California right now. This is amazing. The weather is so good.
Right?
Yeah.
Dude, that's what's hard, man. Yeah, so I was just in Nashville. I stay at Jake's house when I go there, and I fall in love with Nashville every time I'm there.
Yep.
And come back, ready to pick everything up and load it out.
But then it's 72
And
degrees.
then it's 72 degrees.
In December.
In December. We went and walked down on the beach today, and it was just like all time.
Paradise. I know.
It is. But,
I do miss the weather.
yeah.
I miss it for sure. I mean, we went the last 2 days. We went on these like 4 or 5 mile hikes.
Yeah.
We're at my folks' house, and it's in t-shirt and shorts,
Right.
which is wild, but it's
Yeah.
great.
And it's crazy. It's just like that all
Year
year
round.
round, pretty much. Which is crazy. But,
My thermostat's at that all year round in Nashville, though, so it's
yeah,
not there.
exactly. Well, I mean, as long as we're on that, so I'm trying to think. We can go. I'd like to. Obviously, at some point, I want to talk about like you starting and playing music, where that kind of begins.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested just to hear, maybe just talking about just your move to Nashville.
Sure.
As long as we're already talking about that.
Yeah.
But so you've moved out to Nashville how long ago?
It was 4.5 years ago,
4.5. Wow.
which is crazy because I feel like I just got out there still. But I'm 34 now,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm like, what the heck? The last four years, I moved there when I was 29, and because I was like, all right, I'm almost 30. You know, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it.
Yeah.
And I just went. I didn't know anyone out there, and I went for it. I started going out there to visit when in my early 20s, just out of curiosity. I have no idea why. Just one time Bob Seger was going on tour, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Nashville to see Bob Seger.
No shit.
Yeah. And so I went out there by myself. I didn't know where I was gonna stay. I had Bob Seger tickets, and that was it. I landed in Nashville, and I got in a cab, and I just said, "Take me downtown." And he said, "Okay," and he dropped me off. And at the time there was a little Best Western. I got a room there, and then I just went out. I just walked down to Broadway, and I was blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just the coolest. That first night, I remember just going bar to bar to bar to bar, and seeing all these bands, and just being. And it was like a Tuesday night. You know, that was the weird thing. I just couldn't believe it. And every bar, I'm like, "Is it like this every night?" And they're like, "Yes, it's Nashville." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I had a blast, and then I just kept going back I was going maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I would look at who was playing the Ryman Auditorium, who was playing at different venues around Nashville, and if someone good was coming, like I saw Chris Christopherson play there, so I would just keep an eye on the lineup, and then buy a ticket and go. Sometimes bring a friend, sometimes just go by myself, whatever. But it was fun, and then finally I just went for it. I figured I was paying so much money to go out there and visit. I might as well just live there and make a thing of it. So I'm still there, but I love it. It's great.
Yeah. I know that the first time we went out a few years back, and we flew in, I think it was a Monday, either a Monday or Tuesday.
Mhm.
And we Ubered down and went straight to, I think you recommended maybe. And they're like, go check out Roberts.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whatever. So we went down and walked into Roberts. And it was the first spot we were in, and first spot we went to in Nashville ever.
Right.
And walked in, and the band was insane. And I didn't even know necessarily who it was I was looking at the moment.
Right.
I just was like, oh, these old timers are killing it.
Yeah.
We went and ordered like $2 PBRs
Yeah.
and had like $3 cheeseburgers, and sat there, and they had a little card, and it was like, oh, here's who's playing. And you look at it, and it was like, the last remaining Buckaroo on drums,
Right.
and like, oh, Loretta Lynn's steel player, or like
Was
whatever.
it John England? Do you remember?
I think it was John England.
Because I know he did that with the cards too. And I remember the same thing happened to me the first time I saw him. I was like,
yeah.
He has Pappy on the fiddle.
Yep.
Who's, I think, 90 now.
Yeah.
And still plays or something. He's old, but
which is a trip that I didn't even put that together, that's who that was.
yeah.
But like from going back so many times, like having met him, I remember the last time I was there.
And he played with Loretta Lynn too.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah. But I stayed at Roberts on a Monday night for like 6 hours, like in the same spot. And I remember John England, they took a break, and they came up, and I was like throwing their tip in the thing, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, you're Jake's buddy, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like,
he's
dude,
so nice.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you want to jump on for a little bit? Like, dude, he'll let you. I was like, absolutely not.
best.
I was like, nope, I do not want to do that. I was like, not in front of that dude. But
I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's so kind, such a genuine,
yeah,
good dude. He posted a picture, I was maybe a month ago, of him playing guitar, and in front of him he's right behind them. He's playing guitar, and it's Loretta Lynn and Jack White are singing in front of him. And he's like, all right, it was like a throwback picture, It's somewhere at some show in New York with Loretta Lynn and Jack White. I was like,
yeah,
gosh, that's unbelievable. And they're just down there playing
yeah.
every week. It's wild.
Well, that's what I love. We've talked about, so now you play down on Broadway.
Yeah.
Like right off Broadway,
Yeah.
at Johnny Cash's kitchen.
Yeah.
You got there, and you Was Tootsie's where you first started playing down there?
Yeah, so I moved out there with no intention of being like a Broadway
Yeah.
guy or even playing music for a living. I just didn't think it was even an option for me. I didn't think I was good enough, and I didn't know enough cover songs
Yeah.
at all. So I went out there, and I still kept my job in California, and I was going back and forth a lot, just working remotely in Nashville for a month, and then I go to California and do I was a sales rep, and I would drive around California and see my accounts. So I'd go home to California, see all my accounts, go back to Nashville, work remotely and do, computer stuff. And when I was out there, I remember I posted on Facebook or something. I just said, if anyone knows any gigs, whatever, I'm here. I have nothing to do, or an open mic or something. I'm happy to play. And I did a couple random little open mic nights, which was fun. And then a friend messaged me and was like, "Oh, do the Tootsie's open mic night or open mic afternoon, whatever they call it. It's Sunday or Saturdays. I think it's every Saturday at 2:00. You can just go sign up and sing at Tootsie's." And I was like, "Oh, cool." I'd been there before. I didn't know anything about it. And I showed up, which is my acoustic. I was like expecting to do some original songs to a room full of 3 people.
Yeah.
Like a typical open mic night that you don't know about. You just show up. You're like, "Oh, cool, whatever." So I show up and it's packed. It's in the second floor. The room's packed and there's a full band on the stage.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't know what was going on. I'm looking around. I see this other dude standing there with his guitar, and I was like, "Is this the open mic?" And he goes, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Okay, man, is this like a band going right now? What's going on?" He's like, "No, you sing with the band." And I was like, "Okay." And he looks at me and goes, "You have no fucking idea what you're doing here, do you?" I was like, "No." He was like, "This is to get hired to play here." And I was like, "What?" Like, I just didn't. He's like an audition? He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, whatever. I'll just go up and do some Johnny Cash songs and leave." Like, I was not like that. These guys on stage were singing like Florida Georgia Line and stuff. And I was like, just not, I don't see myself getting into this world at all. And I got up there, and the band was, and I'm actually friends with people in that band. I still play with them.
Yeah.
They don't remember it, but I remember everything. Like, we got up and I did Folsom Prison Blues and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And then the host who did the hiring, he just said, "All right, that's good. You're done. Get off the stage." I was like, cool. I didn't expect anything. I was just happy to be there playing. And I was walking out the back, and this old guy comes up to me, John Taylor, who's been there forever and does the booking and stuff. And he's like, he grabs my shoulder and he goes, "Son, how serious are you about honky tonkin'?" And I was like, "Who the hell are you? What?" Like, I didn't know who he was either. And he said, "Come back tomorrow, 10 a.m. for a meeting." I was like, "All right." So then I left and I showed up the next day, and it was a gig. I didn't know that it was actual. That was my first gig, was the next day. And
Jesus.
It was with me and another guy that got hired, and my good buddy Russell, who I'm still very good friends with. He would like help train the new guys.
Yeah.
And I told him right away, I'm like, "Dude, I'm in way over my head. I have a bunch of originals and then maybe 10 covers that I can do." He said, "Oh, Hoss, perfect. You'll be right. Just hang out and play, man. I'll take care of it." And he was so nice. And I remember he sound checked with Waymore's Blues. And that's one of my favorite.
And you're also like, there goes one of my songs.
Yeah, exactly. But I was so relieved because I hadn't really seen anyone else there that did like Merle Haggard stuff or Waylon stuff. And that's what I was into. And he sound checked with that. I was like, "Dude, you know Waylon?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, like, chill out." I was all excited. But I played with him that first day, and then went back. Then they had me come back the next day for another gig, and the next day, and I played there for 2 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, it just happened.
Dang.
And but after about 6 months of it is when I quit my job, and I was like, okay, I can actually do this for a living now. And like once I got a grip on how it works on Broadway and how you can kind of carve your own path down there
Yeah.
and make it work, you know? Because a lot of people, I'll tell them that I play on Broadway, and they're like, I don't see you in that mix of
Yeah.
people, and which I totally understand. But there's a ton of clubs who are very, very cool, and I play at Johnny Cash's now, and they're amazing. They let me bring any band I want and do whatever, play originals, whatever I want to do. They just support it, and they're amazing. So you kind of just you find your people, you know, everywhere.
Like anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for people who aren't savvy to that, like you talked about like how you just kind of learn how that game works. Like, could you elaborate on like the whole Broadway
Yeah. So
cycle or circle or whatever it is?
there's different circuits.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what we're talking about, when I say Broadway, the main strip in Nashville is Broadway Street, and there's just bar after bar after bar after bar, and some of them are 3-4 stories high with stages on every story, and they have music all day, all night, and everyone plays down there, gets thrown around playing different gigs. But basically, you learn really quick that there's different circuits. Different club owners own 4 to 5 bars down there, and you get hired on by different circuits. And each circuit kind of has its own set of rules. Like some places don't let you play other places. Some places don't care. Some places want you to play specific songs, specific set lists. You know, and some places don't even let you choose your band.
Mm-hmm.
They just throw you on stage with a band you don't even know. And you have to play for 4 hours with a band you've never met.
Yeah.
Which sounds impossible. And that's why I never thought I could do it. Because I thought I come from the same world you do, where it's like, you have a band and you rehearse.
Yeah.
And you work so hard at rehearsing for a 45-minute set. And then you pull it off and you're like, whew, that was a lot of work. We did it. Where out there, you get thrown on stage with 4 people you've never met in your life, and they go, all right, kick it off, man. Go. What do you want to play?
Fuck. I remember you telling me that first trip we were there, we went to go see you at Tootsie's, and you was like, oh, I got to call in and see, you know, what time I'm playing.
Yeah. And where.
And I'd be like, oh, so is your whole band? And you're like, nah, man, I don't even know who my band's gonna be. And I was like,
sounds crazy.
Like, wait, what? And you're like, no. He's like, no, I don't really know who I'm playing with till I get there.
Yeah, till you show up.
And I'm like, whoa. So your entire band is all people. He's like, yeah, I might not even know anyone.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is some fuckery. Like,
yeah,
that's crazy that it just rolls like that. And but I guess now being there so much, you get it, and you're like, oh,
right.
duh. Yeah.
And I remember going there as a tourist, and I would see a band, and that would be great. And the singer would be like, yeah, this is actually the first time we played together. And I'd be like, bullshit. These guys are so dialed in and well rehearsed, but it's totally true. I mean, I've done it a bunch of times. It's just Nashville. There's so much talent there, and everyone plays, you know, I do usually 5 to 7 gigs a week normally.
Mm-hmm.
But I sing them all. So there's only so much 4-hour gigs you can do in a week before you lose your voice. But, you know, I know friends who are bass players and drummers that they do 2 to 3 gigs a day, 6 days a week. So the amount of songs and the amount of practice that they get is unreal. And it's in front of a live audience, so it's a real sink or swim kind of environment.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that in Nashville, I remember the first band gig I got booked on too. It was with another group of guys who I still play with, but I was so I showed up and I was like shaking. I mean, because these guys, like Bill Cook, the bass player, he played with Randy Travis for a long time, and he used to be Waylon Jennings' bus driver. He's done everything, you know. He's super cool, and he's one of the best singers I know too. And I remember telling him and Rodney, the guitarist, I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I'm in so over my head. Like I shouldn't be on this gig. And they're like, no, man, we heard you do some acoustic stuff. You know a lot of Hank Williams. Like, we'll be all right. And I was like, okay. And like, if you have any questions, just holler. We'll back you up. And they were so cool, just so supportive, and just mentored me, you know. And that's why I still play with them today. And it's fun now because that was about 3.5 years ago, and now we're so dialed in. Like, they play with me every week at Johnny Cash's, and it's a blast. Yeah, it's awesome. But they helped me out. Definitely like big brothers, you know. Very very cool. They didn't have to. I was just some green kid from California which is also another thing where you're like, do I belong out here? Do I even say I'm from California? There's
Right.
like this weird thing at first, but I mean, it's where you're from. Just, I don't ever, some people are like, you shouldn't say you're from California. I'm like, I don't care. Merle Haggard's from California. That's what I say. I'm not gonna lie, make up some story
Yeah.
about where I'm from or anything, but
Yeah, you guys are super tight.
it's
I mean, 'cause
fun.
that, this last trip I was there, I mean, went there at least 3 different times.
Yeah,
And watch, I was just like, Jesus,
yeah.
so good.
And it's cool now that to actually have a place that lets me bring my own band and you can actually dial in a set
Yeah.
instead of just going off of strictly requests, which is a whole nother conversation. I mean, we can talk about this stuff all day long, but you know, you make all your money off your tip jug,
Right.
and then that becomes from requests. So I can't even tell you how many times that someone will come up, request a song that the band will know, and I've never sang in my life. And the band goes, do it, man. You got it. We'll kick
Yeah.
it off. And they just start going, and you just have to do it. You just have
Jesus.
to jump in. And sometimes, you know, you fall on your face,
Yeah.
but you learn that you get those first couple out of the way where you just bomb.
Yeah.
And it's like, I listen to a lot of stand-up comedians talk about this stuff too, where they're like, you know, they're cutting their teeth in these clubs, even for the big arena tours and stuff that they do. They go in clubs for a long time and just bomb over and over, and they learn about what works and what doesn't. And I actually kind of enjoy it. You know, I kind of get a thrill out of it now. Like if it's something I've never done and I just bomb with, I kind of laugh about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes you feel human. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And people enjoy it too. If you just play it off, you know, and you can laugh about it and the audience sees you really trying to pull it off, they love that. You know, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So people enjoy that, which is cool.
Well, it helps that when you have a band, like the band that you have behind
Yeah.
you too, when you also aren't worried about like, oh, if I bomb this song, these guys are gonna, you know, they're gonna be pissed or
Yeah.
they're gonna be bummed or whatever. You know that like they're supporting you regardless.
Yeah, totally.
And so you have that, but and also I had a thought too. Is I remember that happened. I think when I was there, someone came request a song, and you're, oh man, I don't know that song. And in Nashville, like everyone sings.
Right.
So it's like, doesn't matter what they're playing. And so it's like the drummer's like, oh, I know it. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, okay. So
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I don't know it, but he'll
And
sing it to the, you know?
There's a reason too that I bring a band where everyone in the band is a better singer than I am. Because A, it makes me a better singer, and B, they can help me so much with singing
Yeah.
those songs. Yeah, Tristan, the guy who plays drums with me, his dad was in the Opry for 30 years, and he started playing the Opry when he was like 13 years old. He's played with Garth Brooks at the Grand Ole Opry, and he's awesome dude. But we were playing together for about a month, and then one day I showed up, and we were sound checking, and I hear someone going, check, 1, 2, and I didn't recognize the voice, and I looked back, and he had a microphone, and I was like, do you sing? He's like, oh, you know, a little bit. I just figured we don't have a fiddle player today. I'll you know, if you need some help, I can help you. I was like, hell yeah, dude. You know, I'm all about, you're up there for 4 hours. So the more diversity you can bring to a set, you know, with different singing and instrumentation, I think it's better.
Yeah.
Especially if people are sitting there for 3 hours. I think it's cool to hear different people in the band show off different talents. And he sang a song, and he, of course, was unbelievable. I was like, I can't believe you didn't tell me that you were a singer this whole time, and I had to learn in sound check. But he's great. I'm trying to remember what song that was that happened when you were just there.
I can't remember. It was something obscure.
And it's funny because those the old school Nashville guys that have been doing it for a long time, what they consider bombing or butchering a song is phenomenal. I mean, it'll be phenomenal. They're like,
Right.
oh man, I was flat on the second word of the verse. That's one line. I'm like, dude, it sounded awesome, man. I don't know what to tell you. It was super good. But those are the people I've learned the most from in Nashville have always been, and I think they're the most underrated people in the town, are the players.
Yeah.
Like, you know, guys that have been there played on countless records, been on tour with all these people, and they still just play because they love playing. And they're all willing to help you and mentor you if you're not, as long as you're not an asshole.
Yeah.
And as long as you actually care and are trying to learn, you know, they're so kind and willing to help you out with anything. I ask so many questions still constantly because they're all so talented. And it's cool because they also let you kind of come to your own conclusions on stuff. You know, even like with certain singing techniques and things, I'm always like nerding out on. You know, I'll ask Bill, the bass player. He grew up singing gospel, and he sounds like Vince Gill. He's an amazing singer, and he'll just be like, "Man, whatever feels good, dude. Just do what feels good," you know. And I'm like, I'll get mad at first, but he does these little things, and then a month later, he'll be like, "You're figuring it out. You know, you're getting it." And he won't ever give me some specific weird singing technique. He'll just give me these big ideas.
Yeah.
To kind of hang on to, and they're always really good.
I've always picked up because every time I come out, I always notice like the change in like the way you're doing things vocally, and like you could see different things. I can tell you've been working on doing this thing because I could see it in your
constantly.
face and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which I love. I mean, I love seeing that. It's so cool to come and just be like, holy shit, like like we played together before you were out there, so obviously like I knew at that capacity, and then playing 5-6 gigs a week for a year,
4-hour gigs.
And I show up and you're like, oh my God, like dude's killing it. Like,
cool. I'm glad it's going the right direction.
And then it's like, and then it's like 4 years later or whatever. And it's like this last time too, I was like, I could see like you being very intentional in like the way you're singing.
Interesting. Cool.
And it's something I just picked up on. And I was like, oh, it sounds great.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's cool.
Thanks,
I love
man.
seeing that.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason too. I don't get burnt out on playing down there ever because I look at it as it's a live practice or rehearsal, and I didn't start singing until I was about 26 or 27. I didn't know what a melody was or singing notes. I remember someone sat down and showed me a Green Day melody, and they're like, "This is how the words fit on notes," and I was like, "No, man, just let I grew up playing punk rock like you did, and I just screamed for 15 years. So it's been this constant, and I'll probably, do this forever, but with everything, I just like am constantly trying to search new ways to get better at things I don't know anything about. And even when I started singing country, I knew how much work I had to do and how late I was to it. But I was like, well, just jump in, figure it out, fall flat on your face a few times, but it feels good.
Yeah.
It's makes you feel like a human. So
yeah. Well, as long as we're there too, why don't we touch on like getting to that point?
Oh
like
yeah.
The early
man. Well, where do I start? When I was younger, I wanted to be a professional skateboarder. 100%.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. I was a skate rat, skated every day in front of my parents' house. If I wasn't there, I'd skate to the skate park or to the, shopping center and just skate around, just like buy candy bars and skate, basically. But when I was 12, 13, I went through 7 operations on my eye. I'm blind out of my right eye, and I had to get 7 surgeries on my eye. So I was laid out for like 2 years, and I couldn't skate. I also played a lot of sports. I couldn't play any sports anymore. So being like I was the total Southern California kid, surfing, skating, basketball, and hockey, baseball, anything I could do to stay active. I was just always out doing it. But I was 13. Doctor tells you have to be basically laid out for 2 years.
Jesus.
So one day I remember I was watching MTV. I would love to know who it was. I still don't know. It was an old blues guy. And I was just sitting there in the afternoon one day and watching TV, and he had a Sunburst Stratocaster. And he was just playing some blues stuff. I don't know who it was. And I was like, Mom, I want to play guitar. And she's like, no way. I was like, no. I was like, I can't do, I can't skate. I can't do anything. I want to play music. And she's like, no.
Like,
we're not a musical family.
Yeah.
Just don't bother. Because no one else in my family played any music. So she's like, nice try, whatever. We'll talk about it in another month because you'll be over it by then. Because I was doing so many things all the time, she'd get overwhelmed with how much, like, I want to be a skateboarder, and then a surfer. And I want to play baseball. So I was all over the place. But I kept asking about guitar. I was like, I want to play guitar. I want to play guitar. And then finally, it was about a year later, she said, all right, if you save up your allowance, you can get one. So I went to, I don't know if you remember AMX Music in Encinitas.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's still there.
I'm not sure.
I know it moved. But I went there and I got a $100 Stratocaster ripoff Sunburst, exact same looking guitar. I still have it.
Yeah.
And I actually just fixed it up, which is cool to do. I just fixed it up and been playing it again. But I went down there and just said, I want a guitar. Like I got $110. I saved up my $5 a week allowance for a long time. And they gave me that guitar and some crappy little amp. And I went home and I learned, I didn't learn open chords ever. It was just like riffs.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn riffs. And the first riff I learned was the James Bond theme song.
Please tell me back then you were playing
Goldeneye,
James Bond on Goldeneye. Yeah.
It's so funny to think about how that happened. But I remember I learned that and I was like, oh, it's on. I'm going to start a band.
That's it.
Like the way, it's like what me and you always talk about. Like if you're going to do it, just do it. Like don't half-ass it, So I started just learning random riffs. And I didn't know what I was doing. I took 1 or 2 lessons and I had quit right away because the guy I got lessons from, he'd say, bring in a song you want to learn. And I'd bring it in and he'd go, cool. He'd listen to it. And I'd sit there and just watch him write out the tab.
Yeah.
And then he'd go, cool, work on that and we'll see you next week.
Like what?
Yeah. And then this was right when they started putting tabs on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
So I found that out and I was like, Mom, these lessons suck. I'm quitting. I'm just going to learn by myself. And that was the last guitar lesson I ever got. But I just started learning stuff online. And then in junior high, I got bit by the punk rock bug, man. I just became obsessed with punk rock. I mean, obsessed. Because it was, but at this time, my eye surgeries were all done. I could play power chords on the guitar. I thought I was like, I'm good. And I started listening to punk rock. And it's funny because I think it was, I can't remember which podcast it was that you were talking about. Live records.
Yeah.
That's what got me so inspired to start playing with a band. I remember it was the Pennywise live album, Live at the Key Club. And I remember hearing the crowd and I'd never even been to a concert at that point.
Yeah.
But I heard it and I was like, I need to be there. I need to be a part of this. I need to know what they're doing. And then I don't know how the first band even got started. I met a couple other guys, at that point you're in school and you're just like, who has a drum set? There's no internet, there's no like Facebook. You just kind of ask around like, oh, this dude does. And they're like, I'm a jazz guy. And I'm like, cool. Well, I want to do a punk rock band. You want to do it? And they're like, I don't know how to do that. And you're like, well, we'll just get together and make noise and figure it out.
First of all, who's a jazz guy in like 7th or 8th grade?
It was like a like he was in band, like doing, he was learning music the right way.
Yeah.
I'm like, just go, I'm like, just
do that, but faster.
Yeah. And really loud.
Yeah.
But I started a band in junior high and I remember we started playing open mics in Encinitas. And then that led to, and then I once I kind of got a couple of those gigs under my belt, I was like, okay, I want to write songs. And I was 15 and I started writing songs. And then I met a couple, and that's when I was like getting really into punk rock. And that's when I got like into, like Social Distortion was like my gateway drug. They were like, and they're still my favorite band ever. I love them to death. Always will. But, it's funny because now I think about it, they got me into like country and also more punk rock, because from Social D in junior high, that's when, I started going down the punk rock rabbit hole and I started getting into like a ton of street punk, like bands, like the Casualties and the Unseen and all these guys that like lived in Boston and New York. And it was so fast and so aggressive and I just loved it. Like I was like the teen angst, like 100%, I just became obsessed with like that whole genre, and then found a couple guys and started this band. It was called Career Soldiers, and we started when I was 15. And I did that for 7 years.
Shit.
And we went hard, man. I was obsessed. Like, we would practice twice a week, started playing shows on the weekend downtown, opening up for bands that were on tour. And I remember when I was 15, we recorded a demo, got gigs. And I remember even getting our first out of town gig was in Reno, Nevada, which was, we were 15. We couldn't even drive. So I had to convince my brother to drive us to Reno. And he was, I think 17. And my mom, my poor mom, I'm sorry, Mom, but I'd be like, Mom, I'm going to Reno this weekend. She's like, what are you talking about? Paul's taking us. Don't worry about it. We just leave school and drive to Reno and go play some punk rock show for like $40. And then we put out a full length. We got, and long story short, we got signed to one of the guys from the Unseen. He has this record label. It's called ADD Records. And we got signed to his label. And the record did pretty well. And we went on tour. We finally got out of high school and we just hit the road. We did, I think, 7 U.S. tours and Canada tours. And we just were on the road constantly. It was so much fun. I learned so much. It was a blast. I think that's what I really wanted to do as well. Why I was so drawn to music was just the travel and getting out and seeing new places. And we just hit the pavement hard. But it was wild, man. Those were wild days. I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe even my family let me leave the house. Is what we were doing.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you had started that band so early.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny now because, like I said, I'm 34 and people were like, man, you've changed, dude. Your old band was like so punk rock. I'm like, I was 15 when I wrote those songs. Like, that was over half my lifetime ago. Changed. Yeah. I'm like, they're like, don't you want to play those songs again? I'm like, no. Like, I did it so long and so hard. I just got so burnt out on it. But we toured a lot and we put out another record that did pretty well. And went through, we had pretty much the same lineup. We went through one drummer change. That was it, And then I remember I got picked up to play bass guitar for the Unseen, this band from Boston. They're like my favorite band growing up. I love them. And they helped put out our first record, and then they took us on tour to open up. So we became buddies. And they were a big Warped Tour band. They did all this like really big stuff, and they needed a bass player, which I didn't even play bass. And they're like, do you want to come to Europe with us and play bass? And I was like, I'm down. I was like, hell yeah. So they sent me a set list, and I remember I sat in my bedroom and just learned. That was the first time I learned songs by ear. I just sat with the bass, and I was like, and that's still kind of how I figure out if I'm jamming with someone. I always find the bass note. Yeah. And then go off that, like if I'm playing lead guitar with it or whatever. But I learned their set list and flew to Boston for one band practice, and then we're in Germany the next day playing for 7 weeks. And that was wild because we got to play with we played with Rage Against the Machine. We played with them, Queens of the Stone Age, The Killers, like huge band. We did a bunch of shows over there with Dropkick Murphys. So it was a whole different world of like real touring, like successful touring, I could say. Yeah. My old band was we always broke even, which we were proud of, but we slept in Denny's parking lots every night. Right. We never got hotel rooms. We'd crash in random people's places and just camp in parking lots and get kicked, or truck stops, wherever. But those trips to Europe were the first time where I got exposed to like the big touring machine and like kind of a more comfortable side of it, like actually getting a hotel room each night. And on one of those trips is when I decided to kind of break up my band. I got home and I just was like, I'm over it, guys. I want to do something different. I want to start a rock and roll band. And then, two of the guys stuck with me on it. And then we started a band called Pass the Axe. And we had our practice space actually was right up the street next to the Royal Dive.
Yeah, Ken Lightens.
Yes. Yeah. We do a podcast on that.
Dude, that's a whole nother.
Yeah. But we practice. It was funny. We had that practice space with him, and then we found out how cheap the actual warehouse spaces were, and we got our own warehouse space. Yeah. And then we recorded there. But Yeah, then I played a rock and roll dive bar. You know, we just were like, went back to that social distortion thing. You know, we wanted to play rock and roll and just play bar. At this time, we're all old enough to drink because before we couldn't even play in bars. We weren't even old enough to do it. We all had fake IDs for tour. They were awful. I don't know how we didn't get them taken away, but we started playing San Diego and we got to open up for Social Distortion. That was a bucket list moment for me for sure. And then we did that I did Career Soldiers from like 15 to 21. And then Pass the Axe was from 21 to I think 20. I was like 25 or 26 years old. And then everyone, it was fun, man. We went to California or like up and down California, you know, we'd go out to like Utah and play our buddy's bar out there and wherever we could. And then everyone just kind of got older. You know, it wasn't like, it just kind of dissolved.
Yeah.
And it was getting harder to like get everyone together for band practice. People were getting married. And it was hard to get people together to record. Just typical, you know, growing up stuff. It wasn't any type of like hostility or whatever. And then I somehow had the idea to be like, I'm gonna do country stuff. Just like, because I always loved Johnny Cash. So I was like, and I love Social Distortion and Mike Ness's solo records. That was like my first introduction to some of my favorite music that I listen to now, like religiously, that I'm obsessed with. But I was just like, man, that'd be cool. You know, I didn't even have an acoustic guitar until I was in my late 20s. I just played power chords on a Les Paul, you know, just freaking hard and fast. And I got my first acoustic guitar. And that's when I started learning about like melody and like open chords, you know, because before I'd be like 5th fret power chord. Like I didn't know what anything was. So I started learning about open chords and that's when I started learning about music theory. And then that just got me obsessed with songwriting.
Yeah.
Like the singer-songwriter stuff. And then Bob Dylan hit me. And then that was just like game over. I was like, point of no return. And that's how I ended up in Nashville, I guess, really, is through all that.
Well, that's when I met you was, it's funny. So I may have actually met you that night, but the first time I had ever saw you was at Casbah. And
Oh, no way.
You're opening for
With Whitey Morgan.
Whitey Morgan.
Yeah.
And I remember because we were going to go see Whitey Morgan.
Yeah.
And I was just checking out who was on.
Cool.
I was like, oh, who's this? I was like, I feel like I recognize his name somewhere or something like that. And then we ended up having like mutual friends and you did that show. And then I remember I saw you posted something like you're gonna do something at the Kraken. And I think Shane Shipley had mentioned it, and I was hanging out with Shane, off and on there. And he's like, "Oh yeah, my buddy Jake." I was like, "Oh, we just saw that dude at the fucking Casbah the other night."
That's so cool. I didn't know you were at that show.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And which was a great show. And then so it was a trip, and that kind of just all like really. And that was another thing too, is because you by that time, I don't know how long were you doing country music?
Not even a year.
Yeah,
I mean, because I remember I wanted to start doing it, and I got this black acoustic Fender guitar, and I remember I learned Good Hearted Woman and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, and it blew my mind because both those songs are essentially the same 3 chords over and over. And I was like, dude, this is like punk rock, man. I could learn this. Like I could actually, if I learned the chords correctly, which was, I had to do that first, I could pull this off. So I just buckled down, started learning a couple of those songs, and then I didn't know anyone to record with. I wrote a few songs, and I was like, I want to do an EP. And that's what everyone does. Like, I want an EP. And I didn't know anyone, so I called up my buddy and said, will you come bring your computer in my garage? I want to play all the instruments.
Yeah.
And I got, I think it was 3 songs, or 4 songs. I don't remember. It's called the Tough Love EP. There's still some floating around there if anyone has one. It makes a great coaster for your beer. But but yeah, he came over and I played the drums myself. I played the bass. I played everything. Because I think I like signed myself up for these projects because it just forces me to like really kick into work mode.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like even my mom would be like, why are you putting yourself through this? I'm like, no, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's fun. And I did that little EP where I played all the instruments on it, whatever. And then I was like, I got to have a band. So I went to Craigslist. It's nuts, but I went on Craigslist to the musicians. Do people still post that? They're like
gigs?
Yeah.
It's like gigs wanted.
Yeah, like gigs
Something
or
like that. I
bands
have
wanted.
no idea.
And the first thing I saw was a post that said country singer wanted for this band out in Santee. And I was like, this is so bizarre. Like the first
Yeah.
So I called the number and he's like, yeah, we do a lot of like top 40 country and stuff. And he was telling me about the set list. And I was like, oh, that's cool, man. But I don't want to learn 80 songs
Yeah.
that aren't mine. That was like my first exposure to that like cover band kind of stuff. I was like, I want us to do originals and, like some Waylon or something. He's like, well, hey, man, you sound like a cool dude. Why don't you come down and just jam with us? And, we'll just see what happens. So I drove down to Santee and I was so nervous because it was like these old country guys out there that play rodeos and stuff. And I remember they opened up the garage and they were like, I was on time. I'm always on time. And I think I drove from Encinitas. So it was like, I was maybe like 2 minutes late or something. It was like 5:02.
Yeah.
And they opened the garage. They're all sitting down at their instruments. They're like, you're late. I was like, oh, man. And I was like sweating, like just drove in traffic for an hour. And they're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, do you guys know Folsom Prison Blues? They're like, yeah. And then we played that. And they're like, all right, cool, man. Yeah, if you ever like, need a pickup band or something, we're down to jam.
Yeah.
And those were the guys that played the Casbah with me to open up with White. Like they ended up being super cool guys. And they played the belly up with me and stuff. And that was like my first band. I just went into the unknown.
That's so wild, man. It's a trip that's like so much. That's what people, especially at some point, that's what you used to do, is just be like, gonna see who's around town wants to play.
Yeah.
Actually, a funny story is the band Little Hurricane. They're like a local band.
Cool.
They've done really well. They started off as they're a duo.
Right.
And they kind of did the same thing. It's like the guy had a ad or something, and then the drummer, she was looking for someone to play, and they ended up living like really close to each other.
Right.
And they started jamming.
Awesome.
And then it just became this duo, like guy girl band that just blew up.
Isn't that wild, man?
Yeah. Now they're married and have like 2 kids, and
really,
it's super trippy. But it's funny. It just started out with Craigslist.
Yeah. I mean, that was because before that it was like the sign at the music shop said like,
Yep.
bass player wanted for reggae band. Like, call Steve.
Yeah. It'd be like the thing where all the tabs are cut.
Yeah,
it's like a phone number. Like
that was totally it.
Yeah.
And then I remember I started doing the I was playing around town with those guys from Santee and stuff, and they were great. They were just like, I started getting a lot more gigs. It started picking up, and they were like, hey, this is fun, but we weren't making any money.
Yeah.
And I remember even that gig with Whitey, the venue didn't pay us a dime, and Whitey paid us out of his pocket because he's awesome. And that was like, I'll still never. It's like those moments you're like, I'll never forget that. That was super, super kind of him. But they're kind of like the band I was playing with was like, yeah, we're driving an hour and a half to get to these gigs, and like we get a couple beers out of it, which is great. Like it's great, we love you, but like if you want to find other guys, we're not mad about it, kind of thing. So that's when I started playing at the Kraken, doing Revival Mondays, and that's like how I met you and so many other people, and that was such a cool thing to just meet all these like-minded people around. They were even so close that I had no idea. It was kind of like the hub, at least for me. That's how I met like David Mills and all of them. He came down with his pedal steel, and then I ended up playing with him. You, all those guys. It was great.
Well, that's when I first started showing up. Dude, it's another one of those. And how many times have I told a similar story to this, where I show up at a gig and I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, how do I convince this guy to let me play drums for him?
Right.
And it's like one of those, it's like, I don't know what's going on. I just know that I want the job.
That was,
You
yeah, I
know?
think that was one of the first times we played together were those gigs, huh?
Yeah, it'd be
And
like
drums
that.
are one of those things where people can like either jump up and be awesome, like what you
Yeah.
did, just like listen to the song first a little bit, like come in tastefully and like listen to the volume of the band, you know, like actually like adapt and play with the people on stage.
Yeah.
But I've had other drummers, like especially at the Kraken, that would come in and guitar players are like, "Is this an open mic?" And I'd be like, "No,
No, it's not.
It's not a jam."
Yeah.
Because some guys would come in and be like, "I'm going to set up," and at first I was like, "Oh, cool," and they would just be freaking slamming on their
Yeah.
drums. And I had this little, tiny PA system for singer-songwriter stuff. I'm like playing Townes Van Zandt, and they're like doing Kiss drum solos. So
Yeah.
like, oh god.
Yeah. Well, actually, I remember because I think I had asked about it because I think I was like, oh, so are you guys doing like trying to get like a full band in at any point? Something like that. I was
Right.
trying to like feel it out. And you're like, it's mostly just an acoustic
Right.
thing, And then after
Right.
we got to know each other a little bit, it was like yeah, dude, like bring your kit down.
Yeah,
like
totally.
fuck it. And then it slowly turned in. And next thing every week was like
That was so
a full
fun,
band.
man.
It was just different
Yeah.
people. Whoever showed up was there.
Yeah.
And like Steven and Corey would come.
Yeah, I
all
remember
that.
Corey would always, he'd always be working because I'd be like, "Come
Yeah,
down, dude,"
yeah,
and
yeah.
he'd like come straight from the sushi
Yeah,
restaurant.
slide in at like
Yeah,
11:30
but
on
it
a
was great.
Monday.
Yeah,
Uh,
Hippie would come down
Yep.
sometime. I remember, man,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Well, because from the Kraken, it went and then moved over to Booze Brothers.
Yeah, see, I was gone. I still haven't been one of those. 'Cause
Oh, wait.
I
Oh, that's
I
right.
left.
Because that's right. You left, and
Shane
then
took
Shane
over.
took over at
Yeah.
the Kraken, and then that's when it moved
It like
over
moved
to
to,
Booze.
to
Yeah.
Blues Brothers because I remember I was like so bummed because I started doing that and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, no
I know.
more
We were all
Revival
worried. We were like,
Mondays.
what's going to happen?
Yeah, I was like
Yeah.
devastated. I'll get the Facebook memory pop up sometimes.
Yep.
and it's like the farewell flyer I made. I'm like, oh man, that was like so cool.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, Corey's out in Nashville, Graham's out in Nashville.
Yep.
Hopefully you soon. We can drag you
Not
out there.
making
But...
any confirmations on the internet to have people hold me by.
But yeah, it's cool. I like seeing too what everyone's still doing here. It's awesome. I don't, and it's kind of a bummer because, well, especially this year, every time I've come home, there's not any, because of COVID, there's not really
Yeah.
any gigs happening, the normal stuff. But whenever we do come home, we always try and go to Booze Brothers or
Yep.
something just to see what's going on. I like seeing all the like all the guys I used to hang with too that play in like psych rock bands and stuff. They're awesome. Like they're always working on new projects. And like going to Europe and stuff, I always like to see what they're doing as well. But San Diego's great, man. There's a ton of good music here.
There is a lot of good players.
Yeah.
The community's grown a lot, which has been a really cool thing. It's been, at least from my experience, it's grown to be a really tight knit,
That's awesome.
supportive,
Yeah.
kind of like a lot of camaraderie and people trying to find creative ways to kind of build each other
Yeah.
and kind of
Yeah,
raise the tides.
It seemed like even I remember when I left, it was like about 4.5 years ago. Like the Americana thing really started picking up out here too, which
Yeah.
is great. I think it helps too. I mean, you would know more than I would, obviously, but there's so many more like kind of cool breweries opening up and in different places that welcome the idea of live music. Where
Yeah.
before it was people were like, live music, ugh, it
Yeah.
was such a
The market's changed for it,
Yeah.
for sure. I would say that like San Diego being obviously like the craft beer
right.
hub, and then all of these beer companies found like a loophole as far as opening up like a place to serve their alcohol
Right.
and being able to have these warehouse spaces. And by having a warehouse space in your own and serving in your own facility, as long as you're just serving your own beer, you didn't have to have like a full liquor license.
Oh, gotcha.
So all these places kind of figured that out, and so now all these breweries open up, and they all have these
Yeah.
huge facilities, and so many of them have just piggybacked on that. Like, well, let's fucking do music,
Yeah, it's great.
and because it's someone either involved in the brewery or some aspect of it, they're either in a band or
Right.
their friends are in bands, and it just becomes a thing where
Yeah.
it just kind of like
Where they have band practice in their brewery. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally one of those things. But I remember Booze Brothers was like the first place I played at like that where I loved it. I was
Yep.
like, this is like, this works,
did it so
I'm not,
well. Yeah.
I'm sure you've done those plenty of the gigs too where they're like, oh yeah, you guys are on at 1 a.m. and it's Wednesday and you're like, oh man, like you don't even know what time you're going to play till you show up. You
Yeah.
show up at 7 o'clock. Yeah, you guys are on at 1. You're closing. Oh, cool. down in San Diego playing at 1 o'clock to the bartender. And then, but whatever, it's a gig. It's fun. But I love the brewery stuff because they're like, oh, we're doing like after work crowd, like from 5 to 8.
So good.
And I'm like, yes, dude. And there's people there that actually, cared about the music and would listen, and like actually like buy a CD or something like that. And that was really cool.
And they pay.
Yes.
That's the other side is it's like you can go do this gig and play for 3 hours with your band and everyone's going to walk away with money.
Yeah.
And the best part
and
is
some beer.
It's like beer. And beer.
Awesome. Yeah. They'll give you a growler.
Yeah.
One time I broke a whole growler on the way home from one of those gigs in my truck. It's like covered in beer.
And what's cool is that with like you said, the time, it's like, oh, you're playing from 5 to 7 or you're playing from 5 to 8.
Yeah.
And it could be a Friday night and you're going to go play that gig and make some money and it'll be cool. And then you could be like, cool, I'm going to leave that gig and now I'm going to go play the gig that doesn't pay.
Right.
To, a packed bar, my favorite local dive bar or whatever it is, which is cool, is like to be able to facilitate that. And it's like, you could talk about that and be like, oh, no, wait, where's that happening? You'd be like, in Oceanside.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what?
And I lived up here. I was in Oceanside and Carlsbad. Like when I got out of high school, I moved up to Carlsbad, Oceanside. I was living up here. And then it was great to be like, wait, I don't have to drive downtown at 5 o'clock to wait at a bar to play for 30 minutes at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's cool. It seems like just looking from afar in Nashville, it's really cool to see all the new places opening up and welcoming acoustic stuff, band stuff, whatever.
Yeah. But still, it is dynamically, and again, I say all that like, oh, we got all this stuff going on. It's really cool. And it is so dynamically different every time I go to Nashville.
Oh, for
and I'm
sure.
always like, this ain't shit.
Yeah, I mean that's the mecca. I mean it's like ground zero of it all. Everything's done there from songwriting to recording to live gigs. And it's cool about that town is that there's so many different routes you can go within music that I didn't know. I didn't even know. To me, I always thought even to make a living as a musician or an artist, you were either dead broke, living in your van, which I did, or you're selling out arenas. Like there's no real middle class.
One or the other,
yeah. Like that's kind of like the general,
yeah,
like perception of like what it is being a quote musician for a living. But in Nashville, like there's so many different things you can do, and you can actually make a comfortable living and survive and like pay your bills. Like I never thought you could just play live music in the same town and pay your bills. But I've been doing it for 4 years now, and it's awesome. I love it. I could do it forever and be like, yeah, it's great.
I love that.
Go home and record stuff in my house and mess around with that and still do my own thing, but then go play live.
I've always appreciated your perspective on those gigs, like the working gigs and like the downtown gigs. I remember at least early on, you'd talk about how you'd have people and they'd be like, how do you like bring yourself to do that? Or like, because people who are like more of that artist centered kind of ideology are like, I'm not going to go play these cover songs for 4 hours or go sing, whatever. And they kind of would look down on that. And I remember you talking about it and you were just like, well, I got to work.
Yeah. I'd rather have a guitar in my hand.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to go stand there with a guitar and sing 5 days a week, 4 days, whatever it is, and play with all these legendary dudes who are like mentoring me.
Yeah.
And doing that. It's like, or you can go, like, what are you going to do? Go bust tables?
Yeah, which I've done all wash dishes, I've done all that stuff too. And I'm like, you can make more in Nashville playing gigs and if certain guys would like give me flack for playing downtown, like, oh, you're like a Broadway guy or whatever. And they're butts and tables or whatever. And I'm like, they're talking shit on what I'm doing for a living. And I'm like, I'm playing Merle Haggard songs with Merle Haggard's bassist. Like, if there's something wrong with that, whatever. That's fine. Like, I'm totally cool. I'm totally pumped on just learning. Like, I just want to learn as much as possible from all those guys because they're so good and they're wizards, man. Like, they can pick up songs in a second. They know how to play together. They know when to lean in, when to back off of things. It's unbelievable. But yeah, it's a good position to be in, man. I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky that I met those people and that they're willing to play with me. Because it's my favorite job. I feel like since I moved to Nashville, I haven't had a job.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
Well, and it leaves you so much freedom,
Right.
too, in the sense that you can go do that, and it's a 4, sometimes 5-hour gig, but at the
Yeah.
worst case scenario, you've spent 4 or 5 hours playing music,
Yeah.
and then now you have,
Yeah.
16 other hours of your day
Yeah.
to go
exactly.
do your own music or to go do,
Yeah.
whatever else you want. Like it allows that freedom because you're obviously able to make a living off of that allocated time.
Yeah. And I'm obsessed with autobiographies.
Yeah.
Like I've read a lot of autobiographies from a lot of different singer-songwriters and bands and like guys like Waylon and stuff. And what I found was the most common thing I always saw was they were like, we literally gigged every single chance we could, like till our hands bled. Like every day, they'd pick up these residencies at certain bars that were like, we want you here 6 nights a week. And that's what they did. And that's how they found their sound, and that's how they got good. So I kind of took a lot from those books that I would read and be like, okay, I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be like, I'm going to be selective and like pick the right. I was like, you got a gig? Bring it, man. Let's rock. Like, let's do it. I want to get better and kind of use it. It's like we were saying earlier about trying to evolve and grow and learn new techniques. It gives you a platform in front of a live audience to try things that you haven't done before, which I think is so valuable.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But it's even crazy too in Nashville. Artists like Josh Headley and like Lily Mae and stuff, they're still down, like playing Roberts and Layla's and stuff. They're still doing it. It's wild to see people go like have a successful artist career on a label, and do all this cool stuff, and they're still down there playing. It's
come back.
Yeah. It's or just in their off time when they're not on tour. It's cool.
Yeah, it's rad that so much of that allows for that flexibility too, because everyone's doing it, everyone's in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a understood thing. It's like we don't expect that you're going to be here for 5 years straight. We know that you this is your job for the day.
Yeah. Everyone's bouncing around too, going on the road, coming back, recording, doing whatever.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the place looks great.
Thanks.
For those listening, me and Dolly have both recently become obsessed with recording things.
Yeah, it has been.
It's an expensive habit.
It's
the best. I love it.
I prefer not to talk about that side of it because I know my wife will be listening
Dolly's
to
life
this.
Megan, if you're listening,
she's gonna right now.
It's for your future.
You cannot hear it, but I hear it. She's saying, "God damn it, Dolly." Sorry, I love you. But yeah, you definitely being at your place this last trip saw some of your rig and like stuff you were doing, and then it just kind of spiraled me into all these ideas.
Yeah, and it's weird too. I think about why I got so into it because I've never been like a gear nerd, even with guitars or amps. I'm always pretty basic, like, oh, that guitar sounds great. I want that guitar. It sounds good. Like, it doesn't really matter what the model is or anything, but I can't dissect a guitar. I can't tell every piece of wood that's on it. I know the basics, obviously. I've been playing guitar for a while now, but some guys, they talk about it and it's almost like a foreign language, like some of the stuff they're saying. But with recording, I just like I love the gear. It's like we were saying earlier, I'll watch like comparison videos on YouTube, like mic comparison videos for like
hours
into the night.
Dude, hours. Listening to them like A-B between stuff. Like,
and I'll rewind it and watch it again. I'll be like, whoa, like, I don't know, but
is that one worth the extra? I can't.
But what's cool and what I've noticed is that because I've gotten so into recording, it's made me want to write more.
Yeah.
And now, like, when you kind of get, like, I love recording. I love being in the recording studios, and I love, I love everything, the soundboard, the compress. I love the feel of like a good recording studio. It's great. Some people have anxiety attacks, but
I love it.
yeah, me too. So now that I have the ability to do basic, and I did that album earlier this year, just in my house by myself. And then like once I was able to, I saw that I could do that, and I was like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit, and that's where
Yeah.
it gets dangerous as far as fine gear and mics and stuff. But
Yeah.
it makes me write more because I can kind of work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, you know, before you start writing a song, you don't really know what's going to go. Where now it's like I'll like think about a certain preamp or a certain microphone and what guitar sounds good with it, and then I'll be like, oh, you know, it would sound. And then I'll go backwards from it. Like I'll think of the finished product first.
Reverse engineer it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Reverse engineer it, which
Yeah.
is something I've never done before.
Yeah. That's true.
It's a whole new technique, but it's cool. So
It's so rad living in a time where we can do that ourselves.
right.
That we have all of it at our fingertips. It's another thing where I'm just shocked that anyone can still come up with an excuse to not do something at this point in time, because literally
YouTube University,
anything,
man.
dude, anything you want to do, you can literally fucking do yourself if you're willing to do it. Like, yeah, and you don't even have to spend a lot of money. You could start basic,
Right.
and still do a lot. And
Yeah.
it's with the internet at your fingertips and programs that are right there that are accessible, that are user friendly, that are mostly intuitive, and like, yeah, obviously nothing's going to take away from, you know, $1 million studio.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
that
I
is
mean,
still always going to be what it is.
yeah.
But at the end of the day,
And when we can afford it, we'll be there.
absolutely 100%
Yeah.
just to be able to be there, it's
Yeah.
like at that point too.
Yeah.
But that's something that I learned, and the value, like, and I've just always been that way. If I can find a way to do something myself,
Right.
fuck, like I will go down that path hard to remove me having to lean on anyone. If I don't have to lean on anyone, that's where I feel like the most free.
Yeah.
And so like with MySpace doing that little by little, it's like, okay, so I'm playing in all these bands and I'm constantly having to rehearse.
Right.
And it was like, all right, well, if I can have a space where I can have my drums set up all the time,
Yeah.
and I don't have to go take them and break them down and set them up, break them down,
Yeah.
set them up 5 days a week for rehearsals or whatever it is. It's like, that's kind of how it started, is like, fuck, okay, I can do that. You know, and then like, well, I want to be able to record like these little ideas. And then it became like, well, how do I record? Like, we're going to be in here. Like, fuck, I could just record our rehearsals.
I love the process.
Yeah,
the
you know, it's like,
progress.
okay, well, now, so to do that, well, I got to have at least a few mics for that.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, fuck, now if I just get this one mic, like the vocals will sound so much
Yeah.
better. You know? Okay, now what about the, you know, so it just becomes that thing, but it really does. It gets to a spot where eventually over time you can completely make yourself self-reliant.
Right.
Think about how many dope records have been done,
All my favorites.
dude, that
Yeah.
are just like simple, and they've been done with like a couple mics.
Yeah. My favorite, and I was the album I did earlier this year, when I got asked about it, you know, people were like, what made you want to do this? And I would always credit Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska record,
Yeah.
which is still one of my all-time, I think it's just genius record. And he recorded that on a 4-track by himself. So like that. And then John Moreland,
Yeah.
who I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize, I listened to him for years and I didn't realize he did his own, his first few records he did himself.
Yep.
You know, he'd have a couple friends come in and do stuff from what I understand. But it was mostly him. I remember I was on the airplane listening to a podcast,
Mhm.
and he's like, yeah, I found out about the SM7B, which we're talking into right now. And I just kind of started setting it up and recording songs.
Yep.
And then this switch went off in my head, and I was like, okay, as soon as I'm getting back, I'm getting one of those microphones, I'm getting interface,
Yep.
you know, I'm going to start going down that route. But that was what's cool. Even when I saw you were starting to do the podcast, I love everything you do, because like, I watch from even just being in Nashville, like, you'll get an idea with something and it goes, once it's out the gates, man, it's gone. Like, even with the podcast, it's like, you started it and I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool to watch evolve. And now it's like a full legit setup with like great mics, like, and we're in this awesome space. It's so cool. And it happened like
overnight.
2 months? Like, I mean, how many?
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm trying to think of when you aired.
Yeah, what's funny is I started doing, and I did the first. I wasn't sure if I was going to do video or not, and I was like at the last second with Hollanders. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to record it.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want to make it accessible. That way, it's just there.
Yeah.
No one fucking watches it. That's fine, but that way I did it and it's there, and maybe sometime, whatever, it'll just be like a placeholder. And I was doing it, and I was just using the lighting I have in here, which is a very warm light, like some market lights, just for my general lighting in here, and didn't do anything special. And I had a SM7 that I had bought for probably recording Ashley at one point, and another. So they weren't even matching. It was all this stuff, and then it was like, okay, now I need to get another one of those SM7s.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, well, how can if I can add this, or I can do that. And I remember I was fucking around trying to figure out lights, and I got these little tiny ass LED lights.
Right.
And I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and record this one with these lights. And it was fucking terrible. But I remember you were like, dude, like
I missed it.
like, oh, I'm gonna miss the warm, like janky
intimate lighting.
Yeah.
That's why one of the reasons I love being a friend, because I know you're the only people I can like talk shit on your comment, and I know that I'm just totally kidding, and I'm like so like pumped on what you're doing, but I can just drop that like I know you're gonna laugh and not be like, Jake's an asshole. You know what I mean?
No, I was like half expected almost.
It was great.
Yeah,
but it's cool, man, because that is the beauty of. I mean, really, this whole conversation we've had is just like, just dig in, man. Like.
Double
get
down.
your hands dirty. Just whatever you got. You got an iPhone and a mic.
Yeah.
Like, start a podcast. Yeah. Go for it. If you don't have a mic, use your cell phone. Like there's a way to do it, and it's been cool to just it's in so little time. It's evolved. I mean, you are interviewing Pete in Nashville at a studio. Like that was so cool. Or you came back and you were like lit up.
Honestly, it's one of those things where like I've never had bigger imposter syndrome.
Right.
Then like halfway through that conversation with Pete.
Interesting.
Because I'm just sitting there, and here's what I'm thinking is that I'm realizing that the conversation, because I'm doing like what I'm doing with you, like I'm just interested in the conversation.
Right.
I'm less interested in the content as far as how deep it can go, or like how intellectual it can go, or whatever. But I'm sitting there with someone who, like, in his studio, which is like this epic spot, who's a wealth of knowledge on all of these things that are very technical that I have no idea about. So like I'm directing kind of this conversation with him just to have a conversation with him, but acknowledging that I also want to like tap into like his world, but I have such a shallow like understanding of his world. So for people who typically would be interviewing someone like him, like they're gear nerds.
Totally.
They're super fucking nerds. And they like what they're looking to get out of him is so much deeper, or so much further down a rabbit hole that I don't even know exists. And so it was about halfway through that conversation and about 2 glasses of tequila that I was just like, dude, what the fuck am I doing sitting here? Like,
you start sweating a little bit,
kind of, and I was like, dude, I better start thinking of some like really good questions to ask or something.
Yeah,
like I just in being like, I want to make sure I can get everything out of it. But yeah, it's super wild, super crazy. That was one of the crazier.
But I think what was cool, when I listened to that interview, I mean, the vibe I got is, and I obviously don't want to speak for either of you, but you can. I'm guessing he gets asked about those super nerdy gear talk stuff all the time. So it was super cool to have like just a refreshing, even when you're can you just explain to people what mastering is?
Yeah.
Was great. Because I mean, it's something that so many bands and people don't do or skip over.
Yeah.
And to just hear someone like that explain it and break it down was awesome. I mean, just reassuring and good for people to hear.
Well, and that's kind of what I also acknowledging that like that's not the gear nerds aren't my market of people. And not that I have a market, but they're just not the general people that are. Yeah. And so that was definitely.
You're not going to talk about EQ for an hour and a half.
Also, I can't because I'd literally be like, oh yeah, totally.
One day we'll see.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was really super fortunate.
Yeah, that was
such a cool dude, such down to earth, just genuine, nice dude.
Super cool.
Super fortunate to have crossed paths and remain in contact with him.
I'm interested to see what I'm interested in a year from now where this podcast will be at, what you'll be doing.
I don't even.
That's wild to think about.
Yeah, I don't think about that.
Hopefully there'll be normal live gigs again.
Yeah. Speaking of, so I obviously have to ask in the middle of COVID, but how has all of that been for y'all out there? And I know it's different. California is a different
Yeah.
world, is a different planet seemingly than the rest of the country. But I know that you guys kind of had some of your own, and especially with you and Megan both had COVID at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it in October. I mean, like everywhere, the whole thing has just sucked, especially
Yeah.
for anyone in entertainment, whether it's, theater, musicians, bands. I mean, I have tons of friends in Nashville who are live sound engineers that have been out of work all year, or, recording engineers, whatever, stage techs.
Yeah.
And I've kind of lucked out, though, as far as work. We were shut down from, I remember March 15th was my last gig, my brother's birthday. And then they closed downtown down, which I didn't think was possible. I remember hearing about it and being like,
that is a fucking locomotive train just running.
Yeah,
so to shut that thing down is like,
I couldn't believe it. And it was supposed to be for 10 days. And then it
Yeah.
was like, okay, another week. And then it was like a month, and people were freaking out, because at this time there wasn't really any unemployment set for people. There was like music cares and these organizations that were a huge help, like to me and a lot of other people in Nashville. But I lucked out because in June, Johnny Cash's opened back up because it's a restaurant, quote unquote. There's bars, but it's majority of their business is food. So they've been open since the middle of June, and I've been playing there 3-4 days a week.
Yeah.
Since. So the downside is that it's half, sometimes quarter capacity, half capacity. So there's way less people. There's no dancing. You have to wear a mask if you're walking around. All the normal rules that are pretty standard everywhere. But the upside is I've kept a job through all this, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Because, that place literally saved my ass. Totally. Yeah. And some of the guys in my band too, like kept us afloat. And even when the shutdown was happening in the beginning of summer, they kept feeding all the bands and bartenders. They would open the kitchen and do like takeout orders for free for the whole family. Yeah, they were amazing. So I'm forever loyal to that place. I love them.
Wow, that's super cool.
That was great. But yeah, me and my girlfriend got it in October. Some places are, there's no way to tell where you got it. I don't know. You could have a million conversations, but I know people who've gotten it from all sorts of different spots, but some places are more relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out here too.
Yeah.
There's places
Absolutely.
where you're like, wow, this was like nothing has happened. Like nothing happened here. There's not even a pandemic going on, but we got it.
I.e. last night when we were at dinner.
Yeah, but even then, there's people like were wearing masks. Like,
yeah.
I played out in Cookeville in Tennessee, and this isn't even where I got it from, but I showed up to this gig and we parked and we looked around and like there was not a mask anywhere. There was no the bartenders didn't have, the bar was open, people were dancing. It was like COVID never happened.
Yeah.
It was just like small town USA. And I played the gig and went home and was fine, luckily,
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say anything was right or wrong or who should be doing it. Like that's not my place. But I did get it in October, and they make you take off mandatory 2 weeks of work.
Yeah.
But it sucked for me. My girlfriend didn't have symptoms as bad as I did. She like kind of lost taste and smell and was like fatigued and had like a slight cold, but I was out, dude. I was like, it knocked me on my ass.
Yeah.
I was out at first I thought I had the flu. Because it was like right when flu season was starting to hit.
Oh, God.
And I didn't have the COVID symptoms. I wasn't coughing. I didn't have a fever or the typical COVID symptoms. So I was just super dizzy and tired. And I finally, I was like, I need to get tested. I feel so nuts, crazy. So I got tested and it was positive, and then I was out for 3 days. I didn't leave my couch. I mean, I was spinning like when you're drunk and have the spins.
Oh God, that's my nightmare.
Dude, it was terrible. So I was just
and you're like, fuck, and I'm not even drunk. This is terrible.
I mean, people were like, oh, just drink some whiskey, whatever. I'm like, I don't even want. I drank so much water. I already drink a lot of water. I was like a camel, dude.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there with my legs up on the couch with a cold washcloth on my head for 3 days, just riding it out like any spins. You're just like, try to get to shore, dude.
Sounds like me every Friday night.
Yeah, seriously. And then I'm like, is this just the worst hangover? Is he punishing me? But I finally, and then that turned into congestion and taste loss, and then crazy fatigue. I mean, it took probably a month before I felt like my normal energy was back, and I had a dry cough that was really, really annoying because it would just be like wheezing in the morning and at night. It was every morning, every night. I would just start like dry coughing, but it sucked. It's real. People out there who don't think it exists still. And I'm like, I definitely had it. It sucked. Just please be careful and take care of each other. Just be nice to each other.
Seriously.
Everyone just be nice and be careful. But luckily, it's been, to answer your question, which was like 20 minutes ago, sorry, but it's been, I mean, Nashville as a whole has struggled big time because, I mean, the whole city is built on music and live entertainment and bars. So there's been a ton of protests on both sides of it, like people protesting to shut bars down. There's people protesting to open the bars. There's just, it's like, I feel like everywhere is just so split. But now it's been open for a while, and it's, from what I understand, it's staying open still. All the bars are back up open again, and they're following all the rules and being careful, or the ones they're supposed to. But who knows? I honestly just stay out of it. I just do what whatever the bar's rule is. I always, I mean, like anywhere, I just respect any rule, any business I walk into, especially if they're paying me. Like I want to be respectful of what they're doing and just be grateful to be working. Yes. Like, I have friends, I'm sure you have plenty of people who haven't played since March, and I'm still playing 5 days a week. So I'm super, super grateful. I lucked out for sure.
Yeah, that's rad. I appreciate kind of their perspective that they've taken on it. Because I was looking into it before I came out.
Right.
Because I was getting ready to come out and things were kind of seemingly on the rise and just not really knowing. And I knew where California was headed. And so I wasn't really sure what was going to happen out there. I didn't want to show up and be, no offense, locked in your house for a week.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys
I don't like you that much either.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think you guys want to be locked with me for a week either. So
another 30-pack Coors Light.
But that would have lasted a day. So
oh man.
But so the perspective that I got is that they basically said, like, hey, with businesses, like when people are in establishments and the majority of them are following the rules, like we feel like people have a safer chance in a dynamic where they know they're being distanced,
right?
And they know that they have to wear a mask when they're doing that, versus when they're left to their own devices. Outside of that, so let's say we shuttle this down, people aren't going to not be around each other,
right? They're going to
find a way. They're going to do it more loosely. So allowing people to be able to work and allowing businesses to continue and allowing people from out of states to come spend their money and do it in a way that's distanced and all that. It seems like they've just kind of like, hey, look, this isn't where we're seeing the problem.
Yeah, what's interesting is that the main problem people had that worked downtown was that, and myself included, was when things were closed, if it was going to be closed for a year, they just wanted to know so they could go get a job at the grocery store, but every week they'd say, oh, next week I think it's going to open back up.
Yeah.
So hang tight. So everyone was hanging tight week after week after week after week. And it's like, and people love their job. Everyone, even I have bartender friends who love bartending. That's, they've worked really hard to get good bartending shifts and they make good money and they love the places they work. And same as bands. It's like, I see a lot of friends in Nashville who are like, please stop messaging me saying to shut up and get a real job. I've worked my whole life playing music. I finally have a job doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quit when next week things are supposed to open back up. You know,
right.
it was
gonna potentially lose that.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand the other side of it because I have friends who were on ventilators for weeks at a time, and it was awful. And I mean, I had it. I didn't have it nearly as bad as some of the people I personally know, but you know, it's dangerous. It's real.
Yeah.
So it's just tough, man. It's a tough situation for everybody.
What I don't understand is why is it so tough for people to say exactly what you just said, is that, oh yeah, I get why you would want to be open, and I get why someone would want to take it so seriously,
Yeah.
and why it's so hard for people to go, this is complicated and there's a lot of variables involved, and like, yeah, why can't I care about everything?
Yeah.
Why is it that I have
That's
to?
always-
That's the part that's hard. Is everything has been a state of choosing.
You're this or you're that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I'm so tired. I'm like so tired of seeing that and hearing that. And
Yeah.
I mean, every individual has different circumstances. No one human being is the same, and they all
Right.
have different family members that they got to take care of. They all have different illnesses they have to worry about. I mean, everything depends on the circumstances. You know what I mean? For each individual person. So that's why I don't ever get on the internet and start bashing anyone for anything, because I don't know what they're
Facebook
going
warring?
through. Yeah, that's the best word. Facebook warring. I just don't like. I'll have a conversation with my friends and family about it. I'd love to, and I love to hear out, you know, all sides of things,
Mhm.
and so I can build a better understanding and be just a better person wherever I'm at.
Sure.
You know, whether I'm going to see my friend in the hospital or going to a bar to play.
Right.
You know, and some people were like, "Are you mad? You know, you probably got it from a bar. Aren't you mad?" I'm like, "No, because I woke up that day and decided to go in there and play. Like, I knew the risk. If that's where I got it from, which I'm just assuming I did get from one of the bars I play at, I don't know. But I'm a grown man. I made that decision
Yeah.
to go do it. I knew the risk, and that's
What do I have to be mad about?
yeah. I'm just grateful that I didn't have any long-term effects, or you know, that I survived it, because I know people who also passed away from it,
Mhm.
and people who are losing loved ones, and it's horrible. But I also know people who want to work because they
Yeah.
have to feed their
Need to work.
kids. Yeah. It's tough, man. It's weird. It is weird too, being here in California, seeing how much different it is compared to
Mhm.
to the South in general. And there's some places in the country who, you know, they're still just wide open, and
Yeah.
some places are shut down, which is, it's wild, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's dude, right now out here in California, for anyone that's not here or, you know, is not aware, but everything is quote unquote locked down.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
been a thing where it's in a quarantine shutdown.
Yeah.
But it's been and then it's shut down, and then the strip clubs are suing the state, and some judge decided to overrule the lockdown and say, actually businesses can open. And
Yeah.
then 2 days later, they go, just kidding, everything's got to shut down.
Right.
And then and you have a lot of businesses who just built all these outdoor patios
And spend so much money.
so much money
Yeah.
doing that. And they're and I have friends that are restaurant owners, and they've basically collectively have band together to say, we, based on our understanding, and we want to create a safe environment, but they're
Right.
like, we can't do this. Like, I own a restaurant, and they are not I, but they're saying, they own a restaurant, and we tried to do the takeout thing and the to-go orders, and we made $200 on a Monday or Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
And then we're like, we can't, the business can't stay open, and our employees are fucked. Like, that's just not going to work, and out of a reaction to that reality, not a political statement, but I just said, we're going to open, and we're going to do it safely.
Yeah.
And we're going to follow all the guidelines
Let
and
people
do all
make
those things.
their own decisions.
And our employees that don't want to or who aren't comfortable, we'll allow them to be furloughed and
Yeah,
take
that's
care of them.
fine. Yeah.
And the ones that do, well, then
Yeah.
they'll come in and work. And because a lot of people will go, well, it's unbelievable what you're making your employees do. And you're like, yeah, I'm making anyone do anything.
Right.
But, then they open up on a Wednesday and they do $11,000 in restaurant sales. And now the state or the city's coming in, they're giving cease and desist letters.
Gosh,
And they're
man.
saying, you guys got to close down or you're going to be fined $1,000 a day every day you're open. And they go, $1,000 a day? I made
I'll stay open.
$500 on Monday and Tuesday, or I made $11,000 on a Wednesday. I'll take the $1,000 fine.
Right.
Like I gotta pay if I gotta pay $1,000 a day to stay open and allow my employees to work
They'll do it.
and
Yeah.
to survive.
There's
fuck
bars.
it.
There's bars in Nashville that do that just with like capacity rules.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't care. We'll pay.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
The
It's
same thing-
interesting. Yeah.
In Nashville too, that was a huge. I remember it was midsummer when it was like lockdown extreme, and everyone became aware that strip clubs were open the whole year. Like
Yeah.
they never shut down. The strip clubs just stayed open, and it was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Especially female singers out there in Nashville were like,
Fuck it.
they're like,
Yeah.
I can legally go on stage
Yeah.
and get completely naked and have people throw dirty money at me. I mean, cash,
My money's clean.
but but I can't go sit on a stage on a bar stool and sing.
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
this is I don't know.
That part
Doesn't
has
add up.
been an interesting play. Like at San Diego, Cheetahs and Pacers, I think they're one of those ones where they've been really fighting, like finding ways like how are we gonna stay open. And at one point in time it was like, yeah, everything's gotta be shut down, except for the strip clubs. And it's like so many people are like,
Man.
do I gotta put a pole in here just for my business to stay open?
Crazy.
Yeah, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah,
it's-
nothing surprises me this
yeah.
year. It's
Also,
just-
do I gotta go to the strip club just to get a meal?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what's it gonna take? And it's just and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it other than it just becomes such a political thing, and California is very interesting on that dynamic, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother.
I would say all I know, it's like that old Operation Ivy song. All I know is that I don't know. It's like I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know the answers. I don't know. I don't know what the. I know what I see every day, and
Yep.
I just try and be nice and do the right thing.
Mhm.
I don't want anyone's business to go under. I don't want anyone to get sick either. It's like I don't know what the answer is, but it's tough to. I hate seeing people so divided and so angry at each other, Facebook warring, and it's like what we always say. We're like, I don't know. One person has been like, you know what? I felt really strongly about this issue, and then someone talked shit on my Facebook, and I completely changed. Like, I don't know. Like,
I'm a new man.
yeah, I'm a new man.
Like, man, you really had a good point.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Mr. So and so from high school 20
Yeah.
years ago.
I feel like it's mostly people just want to hear their same opinion repeated back to them.
Yeah.
Is what they're looking for.
It is funny because you see that, and I've noticed that I don't spend much time on Facebook, but I will notice that you have people, and they comment, and their comments will show up in your feed. And the thing is, what I love is that they don't know that on other people who follow them, their feed, that they're able to just. I might not know the person they're commenting on,
Right,
but
but you
because
see
they
it.
commented,
Yeah.
their comment shows up in my feed. So I'm seeing them essentially copy and paste these arguments in like
Oh,
5
man.
different things, and you're like, dude, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like,
There's so much better things to be
so
doing.
many better things to be doing. Or you could see their timestamp, and it's like, 1 a.m. or like,
Yeah.
I'm like, bitch, go to
How
sleep.
many bottles of tequila are you
Or,
like?
yeah, or whatever. And it's like, fuck, what are you trying to do here? And that's the part that, man, I always say that. It's always a kind of a joke, but yeah, the internet has created this buffer
Right.
that says I can say I could say anything and not have to get worried about getting punched in the face.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, man, I want to go back to a time where there was a little bit more fear involved and feeling like there's some
Yeah.
consequences to saying something. But
It's funny. That makes me think about, because I don't argue or say anything
Yeah.
on Facebook about anything political or even COVID. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
It's there for like music, and
Yeah.
I want to see my friends' kids grow up,
Yeah.
But the way I was raised, like my dad, he's a East Coast, badass. And it was, if you say things, there are consequences. And that was,
you better fucking mean what you're about to say.
yeah. And you have to back it up.
Yeah.
You can't be calling people like, you can't call people names.
Yeah.
If you do, there's consequences, and that's why I just don't get involved in the
Yeah.
Facebook warring. And that's one thing that, even going back to your question about COVID and Nashville and stuff, one thing I loved about, like, I'm grateful for the whole experience is that it really taught me how to be a hermit and be really happy doing it.
Yeah.
Because I remember at the beginning of it, I was like, okay, I can see this going a few different ways. You know,
Yeah.
I could go mentally insane
Yep.
and be
You see it happen.
screaming at the computer and being mad at our mayor or whatever, or I can use this as time off to like focus on myself, my health, my relationships, you know, my family, my music. That's when I did that. The album I put out this year, I did it during quarantine. Like, you know, I taught myself new stuff about recording, and the whole thing was great. It was like a summer off, like from the world almost.
Yeah.
And I kind of just kept my head. I didn't pay attention to the news. I feel like I just was, anything I needed to know, I knew, you know, not like to sound like I was just trying to be some ignorant fool. You know, I stay educated, but I'm not scrolling on my phone 24 hours just arguing with people. It's not changing anything.
Yeah.
It's not changing.
Arguing with people I don't care about.
Yeah. So I really focus on, you know, my home and just being there and enjoying it. And luckily, man, I was just grateful to live in a house, you know, where I had a yard and a dog and could go outside with my dog, where I had friends in New York City who were in a
Stuck in an
studio with a roommate.
Yep.
And man, that would be
Fuck that.
a lot tougher. So
I got a buddy who's in town. He's staying here in town now, in Fallbrook, but he had moved from Nashville to New York. He's pursuing acting.
Right.
And he's in this really epic school that's out there. And he has a spot out there. And he's like, I can't be here.
Yeah.
He's like, because all of his stuff's remote now. And he's like, if it's gonna be remote, he's like, I cannot be here. Like,
Right.
This will not be good. And so he came out here, and he's just kind of gonna ride it out until he has to go back.
There was a couple at my gig a few weeks ago at Johnny Cash's. They're a total like young hip New York couple. You know, like you tell the moment they walked in, and well, we got to talking, and they were like, oh, we're actually moving to Virginia. We're just doing a road trip. We're moving out of New York City. So I started asking them about the situation, and they still had their apartment up there, and they're trying to rent it out they're trying to get someone to sublease it for like $1,500 less than they were, and they cannot find anyone to take it.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Crazy. But if you're going to be in quarantine, you're better off being out in the sticks, you know?
Yeah.
You can go outside and go on a run. Play music as loud as you want. There's no neighbors. I can't imagine. It would have been tough, but
yeah,
it was good.
Definitely, I've been extremely fortunate to have, you know, things.
Yeah.
You know, things that I to have my hands in to stay busy, and a place like this to be able to.
Yeah.
At the worst case,
just run
scenario,
away.
Yeah. Find something, you know.
Oh
and that's,
man.
Yeah.
I remember the. I don't want this. Again, I don't want this to go political at all, but
I love it.
I remember when it was like beginning stages of COVID and the beaches were closed in California.
Oh fuck! That's when everything went ham.
And I was watching like the protest footage and the signs people were bringing. It was like commies can't surf, like all this crazy stuff. I was like, oh man, like my hometown. There it is,
dude. It was some crazy shit, man.
Commies can't surf. It was like the funny, and I grew up surfing. I mean, I get it. Like,
dude, it was
the interviews of
it was crazy. Like we live right off the beach, and essentially it was like we go walk the dog, and it's like we couldn't like it's only like 2-3 blocks away.
Yeah.
So our normal block, they'd have a barricade with a cop sitting there every day
at the beach.
Wait for on the street that goes down to the beach, and it would just be like, nope, can't go down there.
Crazy.
Can't go down in the sun, in the sand.
Right.
You know, or whatever. And it was like, dude, that was scary.
It's like movie shit.
It felt like some weird Armageddon shit.
Right.
And it was eerie because, you know,
like,
if you've
the
ever...
waves are...
Oh, dude, that was the other thing. Man. I remember seeing videos of people getting arrested, like trying to go surf. They go surf, and then they'd get like like the lifeguards and shit, and like the police and boats would come and chase them, and they're trying to run away, and they're getting tackled by cops and getting, arrested for.
There's that one dude out in paddleboard way by himself. Like, I think it was in Orange County or something.
Yep.
He was like way out there.
out.
And Coast Guard had to like come and bring him into shore and arrest
So
him for
crazy.
paddleboarding. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't see them going back down that road. I don't think anyone will allow it, but it is definitely, that was an interesting time.
Gosh, man. Yeah, but we said earlier about when downtown shut down in Nashville, they're saying like they might shut down Broadway. And I was like, they can't. It's not allowed. Like, it's against the law. They can't just close down a street of business.
Yeah.
But this is here to tell you anything. It's buckle up, man. You don't know what the hell's gonna happen.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for the season finale, the aliens or something.
Dude, it's like watching Lost.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah,
that's
man.
what it feels like. It's like every 2 weeks, it's like dun dun dun.
Yeah.
And you're like, I feel like I got somewhere. What's gonna happen tomorrow?
And when it's quiet for a while, you're like, something's brewing. Like, I know there's gonna be a big story.
A fucking smoke monster.
Yeah. I keep seeing memes about aliens. It's like season finale 2020, the aliens are coming. It's
Dude,
like confirmed aliens, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's like not even a big thing anymore. It's like, I just want to go make pizza. Like, I want to go back to work. Like, it's nuts, man.
Yeah. Shit, man.
Shit.
Yeah. I appreciate having you on.
Dude, thank you.
I was
awesome.
bummed that because I know when I was in Nashville, we were trying to stop staying in your house.
Right.
And I was like, oh, we got to do this. And I did one with Pete and Corey. And then it got to be like right around the last day. It was like, fuck,
you're
man.
leaving. Yeah.
I know.
I was gigging the whole time too.
Yeah.
So that was like a whole nother thing. But this was great.
Yeah. Worked out. I'm glad you guys were able to make it out.
Yeah, dude, I'll do it anytime. I could literally, I've been rambling for the last 2 hours about everything. I could sit and talk about all sorts of stuff, man. We didn't even get into more recording stuff. We can do that for part 2. But
Yeah. Oh, there will be part 2.
yeah, anytime, man. It's great. So thank you for having me. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for the beer.
Yeah. We got more to drink.
I know. And thanks, friends, for listening to Dolly's podcast. Spread the word. Dolly's awesome. Love him. Entrepreneur of the Year, Shane Dolly.
Okay.
We'll end on it.
Perfect.
Thanks, man.
I'm losing my mind. All I want is you. I'm losing my mind. Well, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I can't believe it's true. I'm losing my mind, 'cause I'm losing you. I'm losing my mind, 'cause I'm losing you. I'm losing my mind, 'cause I'm losing you.